following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates.
It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media.
News and issues that affect the first state. Stay tuned for Del Aware PM Edition, starting at 6. Now, back to the Rick Jensen Show on WDEL.
Dan White, financial planner specializing in retirement income. Well, I'm a client, and I'm a happy camper. He has such great advice, such knowledge. I really appreciate the fact that every Wednesday afternoons at 1:30, Dan will call in, or maybe Dan Simon, or one of the other folks who works in the office, and give some great advice, some tips on, well, financial planning and what's happening right now. In fact, these guys have been really on the cutting edge of knowledge when it comes to all the changes happening in D.C. that can affect your life in so many meaningful ways. Dan, thanks for being on. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Rick. Thanks for having me.
No, I really appreciate it. We always learn something from you. And I know a lot of people talk about Roth IRAs and conversions, and what about required minimum distributions? So why don't you help us out with that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's an absolute pecking order when you do these things. So, a lot of people want to do, we preach the partial Roth conversion strategy. If you have room in a lower tax bracket, we got to figure rates are going to go up at some point, so it makes sense to do it. So the question that I had from a client just this past week, they said they know that they have to take the RMD out if before they do the Roth conversion, because you can't convert an RMD. So the question was, if I want to do the Roth conversion, he goes, the only RMD I have to take from is an inherited IRA, because he's only 65 years old, but when you have inherited IRAs, you got to take RMDs. He said, does this rule still come into play? I was planning on doing my Roth conversion early in January, but the RMD from my inherited IRA can't be taken until April. He's got it in CDs. Does this rule apply to inherited IRA RMDs? And the answer is, that's a great question, but no, the rule requiring that RMDs from all IRAs must be taken before a Roth conversion is done only applies to your own IRAs, not IRAs that you have inherited. So in this gentleman's case, he could do the Roth conversion before he takes the RMD from the inherited IRA. Now, if it would have been his IRA, he would not have been able to do that. So you kind of got to, like anything else, it pays to know the rules, because if you screw it up, you're going to owe penalties. So
yeah, big penalties, like half the amount. You could lose half the amount that you're supposed to take out, right?
Well, they changed that. It was half, and now they've lowered it to 25%. So they are getting a little more generous with us, but yeah, it's still pretty big. And then it's taxable to boot,
Yeah.
So it all depends, if it's a big distribution, you might have a 25% penalty, and then you might have a 20% tax liability as well. So
that's another thing to consider as well. And this is why it's good to talk with you or Andrew Wood or Dan Simon or Allison or anybody over there at Dan White and Associates. Because the federal government says, for example, with an inherited IRA, you have to basically take all that money out within 10 years. And you can actually, I think in some cases, somebody could put themselves into a higher tax bracket depending upon how much it is they've inherited, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, because if the person, these are all the convoluted rules that they associated with these inherited accounts, but if the person that you inherited the IRA from wasn't of age to take RMDs, then you don't have to take any RMDs. You could let it sit for the full 10 years and then pull it out. Now, would that be a recommended strategy? Probably not, because say you got $100,000 in this inherited IRA, and over 10 years it grows to be $200,000. Now you got to pull out the $200,000 all in the 10th year and pay tax on the whole thing. So even though they don't always require you to take distributions out of an inherited account, knowing that you only have 10 years to empty that bucket, it generally makes good sense to stretch out the taxes on that account over the full 10 years.
So, 10%, I'm sorry.
Yeah, take some money out every year, take some money out and pay the tax bill, and that way you don't bunch it all up till the end.
I'm glad you guys pay attention to this stuff. Really, so. And let's see, something else is very important. How many days till pitchers and
spring training.
Yeah, how many days?
You know what? I think it's only a couple weeks, Rick.
It is. That's what matters.
I was looking at the spring training schedule because I might try to get down there in March and watch a couple games. They actually start playing games, I think, like February 22nd is their first game. So you got to figure if they're starting to play games on the 22nd, they're going to have to report like probably 2 weeks before that. So
yeah,
it's getting close.
I just looked at this at MLB.com. Every team, pitchers and catchers, work out no later than February 13th. So.
Yeah, and I know it doesn't feel like baseball weather out there today, but it's right around the corner. So.
Well, it's Clearwater, so there you go.
Well, they got 7 inches of snow in Pensacola, Florida. So
I know, right? And by the way, folks, you're listening to a guy who takes his mom down there, and when he doesn't take her, she goes. You know?
Oh, Mom has. I get her the whole spring training package. She's at every game.
That's awesome. Sunday mornings at 7 on 101.7 FM, 11:50 a.m., and also streaming to your digital devices and your smart speaker. You bring us at 7 o'clock in the morning on Sundays on the money. So what are you talking about this Sunday morning at 7?
Yeah, I just taped this the other day when I was in, and this is, 'tis the season. We always think of Christmas, but
no.
When you're in January, 'tis the season is taxes. So we are talking about income taxes and retirement planning on Sunday morning.
All right, Dan White & Associates. Give the guy a call, 888-690-8820. I've been very blessed to be working with Dan for many, many years, along with thousands of other folks as well. 888-690-8820. Got offices there in Chadds Ford, just over the line, as well as Middletown. Dan, let's see. We don't start our Go Phils sign-off until, I guess, February 13th, I guess.
There you go. Go Birds.
Yeah, right. Good luck. All right, take care, buddy. Thanks, Dan.
All right. See you, Rick.